Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars drift past the view screen. The Harmony was not a warship. It was a simple transport vessel that carried supplies between human colonies. Jake had been making these runs for 15 years, and he liked the quiet life. No battles, no danger, just peaceful trips through space. "Captain, we're getting close to New Geneva," said his pilot. A young man named Danny Parker. "Should be there in about 2 hours." Jake nodded. New Geneva was one of the newer human colonies, built on a planet with rich soil and clean water. The colonists there grew food for dozens of other worlds. It was a good place, full of farmers and families who just wanted to live in peace. Dr. Lisa Chang walked onto the bridge, carrying her medical bag. She was the ship's doctor, but she spent most of her time studying how different alien species got along with each other. Lisa believed that all the races in the galaxy could live together without fighting. "I've been reading about the Zephyrian Empire again," Lisa said, sitting down next to Jake. "Did you know they've expanded into 12 new star systems in just the past 5 years? Jake frowned. The Zephyrians were a military race that believed in taking what they wanted by force. They had been growing stronger for decades, but they had never bothered human space before. They're warriors," Jake said. "Always have been. But they know better than to mess with the Galactic Council." Lisa shook her head. "I'm not so sure. My research shows that aggressive species often push boundaries until someone pushes back. The problem is, most council races are too weak to stop them." Danny looked back from his pilot's seat. "What about us? Humans have been in space for over 200 years. We must have some kind of military." Jake and Lisa both smiled at that. It was true that humans had been part of the galactic community for a long time, but everyone knew they were peaceful. Humans built things, fixed problems, and helped settle disputes. They were not warriors. The last time Earth had a real military was during the old wars, Jake said. That was centuries ago. Now we just have some patrol ships and defensive systems on our colonies. Nothing that could stop a real invasion. Lisa nodded. "That's what makes us different from the other races. We chose to evolve past violence. We learned that cooperation works better than conquest." The ship's communication system beeped. Danny pressed a button, and a voice filled the bridge. "This is New Geneva Control to all incoming ships. We have an emergency situation. Unknown vessels have entered our system and are not responding to our signals. All civilian traffic should stay away until further notice." Jake felt his stomach drop. He walked quickly to the communication panel and pressed the talk button. "New Geneva Control. This is Captain Morrison on the transport ship Harmony. What kind of unknown vessels are you talking about?" There was a long pause before the voice came back, and this time it sounded scared. "Captain Morrison, we're reading over 200 warships. They're big, and they're armed. We think they might be Zephyrian." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. 200 ships. That's a full invasion force. Jake's mind raced. New Geneva only had a few patrol boats and some ground-based shields. They could never fight off that many warships. "Danny, take us in fast, but keep US hidden behind that asteroid field," Jake ordered. "Lisa, Get on the emergency channel and try to contact Admiral Rodriguez at Colonial Defense. As the Harmony moved closer to New Geneva, they could see the battle beginning. The Zephyrian ships were huge, dark vessels that looked like metal predators. They surrounded the small human colony and began firing. The colonists tried to fight back. Their few patrol ships moved bravely against the enemy, but they were like insects attacking eagles. The Zephyrian weapons tore through the human defenses. In minutes, Jake watched in horror as the orbital bombardment began. Bright flashes of light appeared on the planet's surface as the enemy destroyed cities and farms. Thousands of innocent people were dying down there. "I've got Admiral Rodriguez," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "He wants to talk to you right away." Jake took the communication device. Admiral Ben Rodriguez was the head of human colonial defense. He was an old man who had served in the military back when Earth still had one. "Jake, I need you to listen carefully." The Admiral's voice was calm but deadly serious. "I'm sending you some special codes. You need to broadcast them on all emergency channels to every human colony and ship in this sector." "What kind of codes?" Jake asked. "Activation codes," Rodriguez said. "It's time to wake up the old soldiers. Operation Sleeping Giant is now active." Jake had never heard of Operation Sleeping Giant, but something in the Admiral's voice told him it was important. "Admiral, what's really going on here?" "The Zephyrians are destroying New Geneva. Our people are dying." "I know, son, and they're going to pay for it. But first, we need to save who we can. Get down to the planet and evacuate survivors. Help is coming." The communication ended, leaving Jake staring at the codes on his screen. He had no idea what they meant, but he followed orders and broadcast them to every human ship and colony in the area. Down on New Geneva, the bombardment continued. The Zephyrian ground forces were landing now, taking prisoners and securing the colony. Jake could see the landing craft moving like metal insects across the planet's surface. "Danny, take us down to the far side of the continent," Jake ordered. "We need to find survivors." The Harmony slipped through the atmosphere and landed in a forest far from the main battle. Within an hour, they had found a group of colonists hiding in caves. There were about 50 people, mostly families with children. An old farmer named Pete Wilson helped load the survivors onto the ship. His face was dirty and his clothes were torn, but his eyes burned with anger. "They came without warning," Pete said. "Just started shooting. Didn't even ask us to surrender first." A young mother named Carol Adams held her crying baby close. "They said we were too weak to deserve this land. Said humans were soft and couldn't fight back." Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. These people were farmers and teachers, not soldiers. They had never hurt anyone, but the Zephyrians had attacked them anyway, just because they could. As the Harmony lifted off with the survivors, Jake watched the smoking ruins of New Geneva falling away below them. The colony that had taken decades to build was destroyed in a single day. "Captain," Danny said quietly, "I'm getting reports from other human colonies. The codes you sent out. They're causing some strange things to happen." "What kind of strange things?" "Mining operations are shutting down and launching ships. Research stations are powering up weapons systems. Even some of the agricultural worlds are reporting military activity. Jake frowned. That didn't make sense. Human colonies didn't have military facilities. They had farms and factories and schools. Lisa was treating the wounded survivors in the cargo bay, but she came back to the bridge with a puzzled expression. Jake, I just got a message from my old professor at the medical academy. He says I should report to something called the emergency medical corps immediately, but I've never heard of that organization. Danny looked up from his controls. I'm getting a message too. It's from someone claiming to be my old flight instructor from civilian pilot training. He wants me to report for reactivation. What does that mean? Jake stared out at the stars, thinking about Admiral Rodriguez's words. Wake up the old soldiers. Operation Sleeping Giant. Suddenly, he understood. The galaxy thought humans were peaceful because that's what humans had chosen to show them. But choosing peace and being unable to fight were two very different things. He looked at the faces of the survivors from New Geneva. These were good people who had lost everything because someone thought humans were too weak to protect themselves. Jake's expression hardened as he realized what was about to happen. The Zephyrians had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked sleeping giants, and now those giants were starting to wake up. General Ryan Carter stood in the control room deep underground on Deimos, one of Mars' moons. For 20 years, everyone thought he was running a simple mining operation. The official reports said they were digging up rare metals and shipping them to human colonies. But that was a lie. The activation codes had come through an hour ago. Carter looked at his watch and pressed a button on his desk. This is General Carter to all section leaders. Operation Sleeping Giant is now active. Begin Phase 1 immediately. All around the control room, people who had been pretending to be miners and engineers suddenly became soldiers again. They moved with the quick, precise steps of military personnel. Within minutes, the entire facility had transformed from a mining station into a military command center. Carter walked to a massive window that looked out over what everyone thought was an excavation site. He pressed another button, and the ground began to open. Huge metal doors that had been hidden under fake rock and dirt slid apart with a deep rumbling sound from the underground shipyards. The first human warship in over 200 years rose into the dim light of space. The UES Retribution was enormous, twice the size of the largest Zephyrian battleship. Its hull was black and smooth, covered with weapons systems that no other race had ever seen. Sir, the Retribution is ready for launch, reported Colonel Nina Brooks, walking up behind Carter. For 15 years, she had been known as the head of the Colonial Engineering Corps, building farms and factories across human space. But her real job had been much different. How many more ships are ready? Carter asked. 43 heavy battleships, over 200 cruisers, and nearly 1,000 smaller vessels. Brooks replied, all the hidden shipyards are reporting successful activation. Carter nodded. The galaxy thought humans were peaceful traders and engineers. They were right about the engineers' part, but they had completely missed the point. Humans were very good at building things, including weapons, on the other side of human space. Captain Alex Turner was piloting what looked like an old cargo ship called the Wanderer. Other species ships would scan it and see a simple transport vessel carrying farming equipment. They had no idea that the Wanderer was actually the most advanced spy ship ever built. Turner had been watching Zephyrian military movements for months. Pretending to be a traveling merchant, his ship's computers had recorded every detail about their weapons, their tactics, and their weaknesses. "Control, this is Turner," he said into his communication system. "I'm in position near the Zephyrian main fleet. They have about 3,000 ships gathered near the Centauri system. It looks like they're planning to invade all of human space." The voice that answered him was Admiral Ben Rodriguez. "Good work, Alex. How long until they reach our core worlds?" "Maybe 2 weeks if they move fast. But Admiral, there's something else. I've been listening to their communications. They think the attack on New Geneva was just the beginning. They're planning to take over all 47 human colonies." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. "They're about to learn that was a very bad idea. Stay hidden and keep watching. We'll need your intelligence reports. Back on Earth, Ambassador Kate." Sullivan was sitting in the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the Great Hall, all talking at once about the Zephyrian attack on New Geneva. The Altherian delegate, a tall blue-skinned alien named Vex, was speaking. "While we sympathize with the humans' loss, we must be realistic. The Zephyrian Empire is too powerful for any of us to challenge. Perhaps it would be better if the humans simply gave them what they want." Several other delegates agreed. The Corinthians, the Velta, and even the usually brave Stellaris all nodded their heads. They were afraid of the Zephyrians, and they didn't think humans could fight back. Sullivan stood up slowly. She was a small woman with gray hair, and she looked like someone's grandmother. But her voice carried clearly through the hall. "Distinguished delegates, I appreciate your concern, but I think there's been a misunderstanding about humanity's position in this matter." The Zephyrian ambassador, a massive reptilian creature named Thax, laughed loudly. "What misunderstanding? Your people are weak farmers and builders. You have no military. You cannot stop us from taking what we need." Sullivan smiled, and something about that smile made several delegates feel uncomfortable. "Ambassador Thax, you're absolutely right about one thing. We are builders. We've spent centuries building things throughout the galaxy. We've built space stations, mining facilities, research centers, and transportation networks on hundreds of worlds." She paused and looked around the room. "What you didn't realize is that we built all of those things to our own specifications. And our specifications included certain hidden features that we hoped we would never need to use. On the colony world of New Terra, a place known for its peaceful farming communities, something strange was happening. Dr. Marcus Gray, who everyone thought was an agricultural scientist, walked into what looked like a grain storage facility. But when he pressed his hand against a scanner, the walls slid away to reveal a massive underground laboratory. Hundreds of people who had been living as farmers and teachers were now putting on military uniforms and taking their positions at advanced computer systems. Dr. Gray All research projects are ready for deployment, reported a woman who had been known as a schoolteacher named Ellen Price. The gravitational manipulation weapons are online. The quantum communication network is active, and the nanotechnology swarms are ready for release. Gray nodded. For decades, human scientists had continued their research into military applications, but they had kept it secret. Every major breakthrough had been classified and hidden away. Now all of that research was finally going to be used. Begin uploading the tactical data to all fleet commanders, Gray ordered, and Ellen. Make sure our new weapons systems are integrated with the ship's computers. We're going to show the galaxy what human engineering can really do. Back in space, more and more human ships were appearing from their hidden bases, on worlds that everyone thought only had farms. Massive defense platforms rose from underground bunkers. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers suddenly revealed their true nature. As they launched fighters and armed their weapons, Captain Morrison, still carrying the survivors from New Geneva, watched in amazement as the space around him filled with human warships. His simple transport ship was suddenly surrounded by vessels that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. Captain, Danny said, his voice full of wonder, "I'm getting a message from something called the Human Liberation Fleet. They want to know if we need an escort." Jake looked at his screens. A massive battleship had appeared next to the Harmony. It was painted in the colors of the old Earth military, with the words UES Retribution written on its hull. A voice came over the communication system. "Transport Ship Harmony. This is Commander Sam Mitchell of the Retribution. We understand you have survivors from New Geneva aboard." "That's correct," Jake replied. 53 civilians, including children. We'll make sure they get to safety, Captain. But first, we have some Zephyrians to deal with. Would you like to watch?" Jake looked back at the cargo bay where the survivors were resting. These people had lost everything because the Zephyrians thought humans were too weak to fight back. "Yes," Jake said. "I think we'd all like to see that." As the human fleet moved toward New Geneva, word of their existence spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had known humans for centuries suddenly realized they had never really known them at all. The Zephyrians, confident in their overwhelming numbers, continued their invasion plans. They had no idea that they had just awakened something that had been sleeping for over 100 years, but they were about to find out. On dozens of worlds, in hundreds of hidden facilities, and aboard thousands of disguised ships, humans who had been pretending to be peaceful farmers and traders were remembering what their ancestors had been best at. War was coming, and humanity was ready. Commander Sam Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as it approached New Geneva. The planet was still burning from the Zephyrian attack, and enemy ships filled the space around it like a swarm of metal insects. "Sir, we're detecting 237 Zephyrian vessels," reported Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster from her tactical station. "They're in standard occupation formation around the planet." Mitchell nodded. Amy had spent the last 10 years working as a civilian traffic controller on a busy trade route. But before that, she had been one of the best tactical officers in the old Earth Defense Force. Now she was back where she belonged. "What's their response to our arrival?" Mitchell asked. They're confused, sir, Amy replied, checking her instruments. They're scanning us, but their computers don't recognize our ship designs. They're trying to figure out what we are. Mitchell smiled. The Zephyrians had studied every known military ship in the galaxy, but they had never seen human warships because humans had never built any warships that anyone else knew about. Open a channel to the Zephyrian fleet commander, Mitchell ordered. A few moments later, the image of a large reptilian creature appeared on the main screen. This was Admiral Krex, the Zephyrian officer in charge of the New Geneva invasion. Unknown vessels. You are entering Zephyrian military space, Krex announced. Identify yourselves immediately, or you will be destroyed. Mitchell stepped forward. This is Commander Mitchell of the Human Liberation Fleet. You are occupying human territory and have attacked human civilians. You have one chance to surrender and leave our space peacefully. Krex laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. Humans, you must be joking. Everyone knows humans don't have a military. You're probably some mercenary group hired by the Galactic Council. I can assure you, Admiral, we are definitely human, and we're here to take back our colony. With how many ships? Krex asked, still laughing. I count maybe 50 vessels. I have over 100. This will be very quick. Mitchell looked at Amy, who nodded and began working at her station. Admiral Krex, you're making the same mistake a lot of people have made recently. You're confusing. Choosing not to fight with being unable to fight. Let me show you the difference. Mitchell cut the communication channel and turned to his crew. All ships. Begin Liberation Protocol 7. Target their command vessels first. But remember, we want to minimize damage to the planet below. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The human ships didn't charge forward like most species would. Instead, they seemed to disappear and reappear in different locations around the Zephyrian fleet. The enemy found themselves fighting an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Amy Foster coordinated the battle from her tactical station like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every human ship moved in perfect harmony with the others, creating a complex three-dimensional dance of destruction. Sir, the enemy is trying to form a defensive sphere, Amy reported. Should we break through their formation? No, Mitchell replied. Let them form up. Then use the debris from their own destroyed ships as cover for our smaller vessels. The Zephyrians watched in horror as pieces of their own fleet became weapons against them. Human fighters used the wreckage as shields, appearing from behind. Chunks of destroyed starships to attack and then disappearing again. But the real surprise came when the humans began using psychological warfare. Amy, activate the fear protocol, Mitchell ordered. Suddenly, every damaged Zephyrian ship began broadcasting the screams and panic calls of its crew on all frequencies. The sound of terror and pain filled the communication channels, making it impossible for the enemy fleet to coordinate their defense. Sir, they're trying to switch to secure channels, Amy reported. Let them try. We've been listening to their secure communications for months. We know all their codes. Down on the planet, Major Chris Baldwin was leading the ground assault to retake New Geneva. His liberation corps had landed in 12 different locations around the occupied colony, and they were moving with a speed and precision that confused the Zephyrian ground forces. Baldwin had been a farmer for the last 15 years, growing corn and wheat on a peaceful agricultural world. But before that, he had been one of Earth's most decorated Special Forces officers. Now he was back in his element. Team leaders, this is Baldwin. He spoke into his communication device. Remember, these are our people down here. Every civilian you save is a victory. Every building you preserve is a win. We're not here to destroy. We're here to liberate. The human soldiers moved through the colony like ghosts. They appeared suddenly to rescue groups of trapped civilians, then vanished before the enemy could respond. They used the colonists' own knowledge of the local area to move through hidden tunnels and secret passages. What disturbed the Zephyrian soldiers most was how the humans fought. They weren't wild or angry like some warrior species. They were calm, methodical, and completely focused. Every action served multiple purposes: rescue, intelligence gathering, and tactical advantage. A Zephyrian patrol found themselves surrounded by human soldiers, who seemed to have appeared from nowhere. Surrender your weapons, and you will not be harmed, Baldwin said to the enemy soldiers. His voice was quiet and polite, but there was something in his eyes that made the reptilian warriors step back. You're just farmers, one of the Zephyrians said. Our intelligence reports said humans were peaceful. Baldwin smiled. We are peaceful. That's why we're giving you a chance to surrender, instead of just killing you. But if you prefer the alternative, we can accommodate that too. The Zephyrian soldiers looked at each other, then slowly put down their weapons. Back in space, the battle was turning into a complete disaster for the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Krex watched his carefully organized formation fall apart as human ships attacked from impossible angles. How are they doing this? He demanded of his tactical officer. They're using weapons we've never seen before. Their ships move like they're not bound by normal physics. Sir, I think they're using some kind of dimensional technology, the officer replied. They're jumping in and out of normal space, and their weapons, sir, they're not just shooting at us. They're targeting our computer systems, our life support, even our communication arrays. Krex realized that the humans weren't trying to destroy his ships. They were trying to capture them intact. Every Zephyrian vessel that was disabled, rather, then destroyed, meant prisoners to interrogate and technology to study. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance, Krex ordered. We need to regroup and call for reinforcements. But as his fleet tried to pull back, they discovered that the humans had surrounded them completely. Escape routes that should have been clear were blocked by human ships that seemed to have predicted exactly where the Zephyrians would try to go. Commander Mitchell opened a channel to the enemy fleet. Admiral Krex, this is your second chance to surrender. My tactical officer tells me that you've lost 60% of your ships, and most of your ground forces have been captured. Your choice is simple. Surrender now, or we'll continue this demonstration until there's nothing left of your fleet. Krex looked at his tactical display. The human commander was right. The Zephyrian fleet that had seemed so powerful just hours ago was now scattered and broken. Who are you people? Krex asked. This level of tactical skill, these weapons, this coordination. Where did you come from? Mitchell's image appeared on Krex's screen. The human commander looked tired but satisfied. We've been here all along, Admiral. We've been your neighbors, your trading partners, your engineers and doctors and teachers. We built your space stations and fixed your ships and helped settle your disputes. And all that time, we were learning about you. Krex felt a chill run through his body. You were spying on us. We were preparing. 2 centuries ago, humanity decided that we wanted to be part of a peaceful galactic community. But we're not naive. We knew that peace only works when everyone agrees to it. So we prepared for the day when someone would choose war instead. The Zephyrian admiral looked at his ruined fleet and realized the magnitude of his mistake. The humans had been studying every species in the galaxy for 200 years, learning their strengths and weaknesses, their tactics and technologies. What are your terms? Krex asked quietly. Complete withdrawal from human space, return of all prisoners, payment for damages to New Geneva, and submission to human oversight of your military activities in this sector. Krex wanted to refuse, but he looked at his tactical display again. The human fleet was still growing as more ships arrived from hidden bases throughout human space. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a demonstration of power. I'll need to contact my government, Krex said. You have 6 hours, Mitchell replied. After that, we'll assume you've chosen to continue fighting. As the communication ended, news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had dismissed humans as peaceful traders suddenly realized they had made a terrible error in judgment. The sleeping giants were awake, and they were not happy. Fleet Admiral Diana Price walked through the halls of the hidden military base on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. For 20 years, she had been living quietly on a farming world, growing vegetables and raising chickens. Everyone thought she was just another retired person enjoying her golden years. But Diana Price had once commanded the entire Earth Defense Fleet during the last Great War centuries ago. Now, at 75 years old, she was being called back to serve one more time, Admiral. The Zephyrian response to our demands has arrived, said Captain Luke Edwards, handing her a data pad. Luke had been pretending to be a cargo ship pilot, but his real job was commanding humanity's most advanced experimental warship. Diana read the message and shook her head. They're refusing our terms. Emperor Vex says that one battle doesn't make humans a galactic power. He's sending their entire main fleet to finish what they started. Luke looked worried. How many ships are we talking about, Admiral? Intelligence. Reports say over 3,000 warships, plus support vessels. It's the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Diana walked to a large window that looked out over what appeared to be a research station. But, like everything else humans had built, it was not what it seemed. She pressed a button, and the ground opened to reveal massive construction bays filled with warships. Luke, how many ships do we have ready for combat as of this morning? 800 heavy battleships, 2,000 cruisers, and over 5,000 smaller vessels, plus all our defense platforms and orbital weapons. Diana nodded. The numbers were not in humanity's favor, but numbers were not everything. Send a message to all fleet commanders. We're implementing Defense Protocol Alpha. And Luke, I want you to take the Prometheus out on a special mission. The UES Prometheus was humanity's most advanced warship, built using technology that seemed impossible even by galactic standards. Luke had been testing it in secret for months, but it had never been used in real combat. What kind of mission, Admiral? I want you to visit the Zephyrian main fleet before they reach our space. Let them get a good look at what they're dealing with. 3 days later, Luke was piloting the Prometheus through hyperspace toward the Zephyrian fleet. The ship was unlike anything that had ever been built. It could phase in and out of normal space-time, making it invisible to most sensors. Its weapons could target enemy ships through dimensional barriers, and its defensive systems seemed to break the laws of physics. "Captain, we're approaching the enemy fleet," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. Sarah had been working as a mathematics teacher for the past decade, but she was actually one of humanity's leading experts in quantum warfare. "Take us out of hyperspace at the edge of their formation," Luke ordered. "I want them to see us clearly." The Prometheus appeared in normal space right in the middle of the Zephyrian fleet. Alarm signals immediately filled the enemy communication channels as 3,000 warships turned their weapons toward the single human vessel. Emperor Vex himself was aboard the flagship. He stared at the strange black ship that had appeared among his fleet like a ghost. "What is that thing?" he demanded of his officers. "We don't know, Your Majesty," replied Admiral Krex, who had been rescued from the disaster at New Geneva. "Our sensors can barely detect it, even though it's right there in front of us." Luke opened a communication channel to the entire Zephyrian fleet. "This is Captain Edwards of the Human Galactic Defense Force. I have a message for Emperor Vex from Fleet Admiral Price." Vex's image appeared on Luke's screen. The Zephyrian Emperor was enormous, covered in golden scales and wearing a crown made from the bones of his enemies. "Human, you are either very brave or very stupid to appear before my fleet with a single ship." Luke smiled. "Admiral Price wants you to know that this is your last chance to reconsider your invasion of human space. Turn your fleet around now, and we can still solve this peacefully." Vex laughed so hard that his whole body shook. "One ship? You send one ship to threaten an entire empire? Your admiral must be insane. Actually, Your Majesty, I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to give you a demonstration." Luke nodded to Sarah, who began working at her tactical station. "Sarah, show them the dimensional cannon." A new weapon system emerged from the Prometheus's hull. It looked like a crystal ray that seemed to bend light around itself. Energy began building within the crystals, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Target the asteroid field at coordinates 77 Alpha," Luke ordered. The dimensional cannon fired, and reality seemed to twist around the beam. The energy struck an asteroid that was 3 kilometers wide and made of solid iron. The asteroid didn't explode or melt. It simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been there at all. The Zephyrian fleet watched in silence as the massive rock vanished completely from space. "How?" Vex whispered. Your Majesty, that was just one of our weapons. Luke said calmly, "We have others. Would you like to see the gravity manipulator? Or perhaps the quantum disruptor?" Before Vex could answer, more human ships began appearing around the Zephyrian fleet. But these weren't coming from hyperspace. They were phasing directly into normal space from some other dimension. "This is impossible," Admiral Krex said. "Ships can't do that. Zephyrian ships can't do that," Luke corrected. But then, Zephyrian technology is about 2 centuries behind ours. Dr. Marcus Gray was monitoring the demonstration from his laboratory on New Terra. For decades, he had been developing weapons that other species would consider impossible. Now those weapons were finally being revealed. Dr. Gray, "All systems are functioning perfectly," reported his assistant, Dr. Rebecca Torres. Rebecca had been known as a high school science teacher, but she was actually one of the galaxy's leading experts in nanotechnology warfare. "Good. Begin uploading the tactical data to all fleet commanders, and Rebecca, activate the quantum communication network. I want every human ship in the galaxy to be able to coordinate instantly." The quantum network came online, connecting human forces across hundreds of light years in real time. No other species had this technology because no other species had spent 2 centuries secretly developing it back with the Zephyrian fleet. Emperor Vex was beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. "Captain Edwards, what you're showing me is impossible. No one has technology this advanced. Your Majesty, you're thinking about this wrong. Every species in the galaxy has been building weapons to fight other species. But humans have been building weapons to fight the laws of physics themselves." Luke gestured to Sarah, who brought up a holographic display showing the technical specifications of human weapons. "We don't just shoot energy beams at our enemies. We manipulate gravity to crush their ships. We use quantum entanglement to target them across any distance. We can even attack them through alternate dimensions." Vex looked at the display and felt fear for the first time in his life. These weren't just advanced weapons. They were technologies that could reshape reality itself. "But why?" Vex asked. "Why develop such power and then hide it? You could have conquered the galaxy centuries ago." Luke's expression became serious. "Because conquest was never our goal, Your Majesty. We wanted to be part of a peaceful galactic community. But we're not naive. We knew that peace only works when everyone chooses it. So we prepared for the day when someone would choose war instead. You were watching us, learning from us for 200 years. Yes. Every time we helped build your space stations, we learned about your engineering. Every time we fixed your ships, we studied your weapons. Every time we mediated your disputes, we analyzed your tactics." Vex realized that humanity had turned the entire galaxy into a massive intelligence gathering operation. While other species thought they were cooperating with peaceful neighbors, the humans had been quietly studying everyone's strengths and weaknesses. "What happens now?" Vex asked. "That depends on you, Your Majesty. You can turn your fleet around and go home, and we can pretend this never happened. Or you can continue with your invasion, and we can show you what happens when you attack sleeping gods." Luke cut the communication and turned to Sarah. Sarah, take us back to Admiral Price. I think the Emperor needs some time to think about his options, as the Prometheus disappeared from normal space. The Zephyrian fleet was left alone with the knowledge that they had awakened something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The war gods were rising, and the galaxy would never be the same. President Elena Martinez stood before the United Human Colonies Council on Earth, looking out at representatives from 47 worlds. 3 weeks had passed since the Zephyrian surrender, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. Fellow colonists, Elena began. We face a choice that will define humanity's future for centuries to come. For 200 years, we chose to hide our strength and live peacefully among the stars. That choice has now been taken from us. The council chamber was filled with people who had lived normal, quiet lives just a month ago. Farmers, teachers, doctors, and engineers who had discovered that their peaceful civilization had been preparing for war. Alongst Eleanor continued, the galaxy now knows what we really are. We can't go back to being the helpful neighbors who fix everyone's problems and stay out of politics. The question is, what do we become instead? Dr. Rebecca Torres raised her hand. She had returned to Earth from her research station and was still adjusting to being known as a weapons expert instead of a science teacher. Madam President, what exactly happened after the Zephyrian surrender? The news reports are confusing. Elena activated a holographic display that showed the current state of galactic politics. It was chaos when Emperor Vex surrendered his entire fleet. It created a power vacuum that's affecting the whole galaxy. 12 different species have declared independence from the Zephyrian Empire. 3 other military powers are fighting over former Zephyrian territory, and 6 different governments have formally asked for human protection. The council members looked at each other with concern. They had wanted to defend their own people, not become responsible for the entire galaxy. What about the Galactic Council? Asked Dr. Gray, who had traveled from New Terra for this meeting. They're terrified, Eleanor replied honestly. Half of them want to make us the official galactic peacekeeping force. The other half want to form an alliance against us before we become too powerful. Admiral Diana Price walked to the front of the chamber. Even in her civilian clothes, she still carried herself like a military officer. The truth is, we've already become too powerful, Diana said. Our demonstration at the Centauri Gate showed the galaxy that we have weapons they can't understand and tactics they can't counter. There's no putting that knowledge back in the box. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed human patrol ships throughout the galaxy. Admiral Kevin Stone has deployed the Human Galactic Patrol to protect shipping lanes and prevent the chaos from spreading. But every action we take makes us more involved in galactic politics. Captain Morrison, who had been invited to speak for the civilian transport crews, stood up. Admiral, what about the colonies that are asking for our protection? Are we just going to ignore them? Diana looked at Eleanor, who nodded for her to answer. We've already started helping them, Diana admitted. The Corinthian Republic was being invaded by Zephyrian rebels last week. Admiral Stone's ships stopped the attack and escorted the refugees to safety. And the Velta mining worlds? Morrison asked. Pirates were raiding their supply convoys. We've established a protection corridor for their ships. Eleanor could see where this was heading. How many species are we currently protecting? 17, Diana said quietly. And more are asking for help every day. The chamber fell silent as the council members realized what had happened. In trying to defend themselves, humanity had accidentally become the galaxy's dominant power. Ambassador Kate Sullivan, who had been attending the meeting by hologram from the Galactic Council chambers, spoke up. The Council is meeting tomorrow to vote on something called the Galactic Protection Act, if it passes. They'll formally ask humanity to take responsibility for maintaining peace throughout known space. And if we refuse, Eleanor asked, then they'll probably try to form a military alliance against us. Kate replied, which won't work, because most of them are too afraid of us to fight. And the rest know they need our protection. Dr. Torres looked confused. So our choice is to become galactic peacekeepers or galactic conquerors, actually, said a new voice from the back of the chamber. There's a third option. Everyone turned to see Captain Alex Turner, the spy who had been watching the Zephyrians for months. He walked to the front of the chamber and activated his own holographic display. For the past week, I've been meeting secretly with representatives from over 30 different species. They don't want us to rule them, but they also don't want to go back to the old system where the strongest military power got to make all the decisions. Turner's display showed a complex organizational chart. They're proposing something called the Galactic Cooperative. Instead of one species dominating everyone else, we would have a system where each species contributes what they do best. The Corinthians are excellent manufacturers. The Velta are skilled miners. The Stellaris are natural diplomats. And humans? Eleanor asked. We would be the protectors. Our job would be to make sure no one attacks anyone else, and to help settle disputes peacefully. Admiral Stone appeared on another hologram, broadcasting from his flagship in deep space. Madam President, I can confirm that this system is already working. My patrol ships have prevented 14 conflicts in the past 10 days, and we're not ruling anyone. We're just making sure everyone plays fair. Eleanor looked around the chamber. The faces staring back at her showed a mixture of hope and concern. What about the Zephyrians? What happens to them? Diana answered, Emperor. Vex has agreed to our terms. They're withdrawing from all occupied territories and paying reparations to their victims. In exchange, we're offering them a place in the new cooperative. They're actually eager to join. Turner added, apparently, being conquered by superior technology is considered honorable in their culture. They respect us. Now Eleanor walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling space lanes that had been dangerous for centuries. Human diplomats were helping species that had been enemies learn to work together. Human engineers were building space stations that would serve as neutral meeting places for different civilizations. Are we sure this is what we want? Eleanor asked. Once we accept this responsibility, there's no going back. We'll be committed to protecting the entire galaxy. Captain Morrison stood up again. Madam President, I've been thinking about the colonists we rescued from New Geneva. Those people lost everything because someone decided they were too weak to fight back. If we can prevent that from happening to other families, other children, isn't that worth doing? Dr. Torres nodded. My research shows that most galactic conflicts happen because species are afraid of each other. If we can provide security, maybe they can focus on cooperation instead of warfare. Eleanor turned back to the council, all in favor of accepting the role of Galactic Protectorate. Every hand in the chamber went up. 3 days later, Ambassador Sullivan stood before the Galactic Council. As they formally voted to establish the Galactic Cooperative with humanity as its protectors, the vote was unanimous. Distinguished delegates, Sullivan said. Humanity accepts this responsibility with full understanding of what it means. We will protect all member species from aggression. We will help mediate disputes, and we will ensure that the strongest military power in the galaxy is also the most dedicated to peace. She paused and looked around the Great Hall. But let me be clear about one thing. We didn't seek this role. It was given to us because someone made the mistake of attacking innocent people and waking up sleeping giants. We hope that lesson has been learned by everyone. 6 months later, Captain Morrison was piloting his new ship, the UES Guardian, on patrol near the outer rim of known space. His cargo holds were filled with relief supplies for a colony that had been damaged by pirates. Beside him sat Dr. Cheng, who was now the head of the Galactic Cooperative's new interspecies medical program. Jake, do you ever miss the old days? Lisa asked. When we were just a simple transport crew carrying supplies between colonies? Jake looked out at the stars, where human patrol ships kept watch over dozens of different species. Sometimes, he admitted. But then I think about those families we rescued from New Geneva. I think about all the other families who won't have to go through that. Because we're out here watching. A message came in from Admiral Stone's headquarters. 3 Velta cargo ships had sent distress signals from the Rigel sector. Pirates were attacking the convoy. This is Captain Morrison to all Guardian patrol units, Jake announced. We have ships in trouble. Let's go remind some pirates why attacking innocent people is a bad idea. As the Guardian and its escort ships jumped to hyperspace, Jake smiled. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity preferred peace, but they were very good at war. And now, finally, everyone was choosing peace.